So we were discussing equality in Indian democracy. The Indian Constitution recognizes every person as equal. This means that every individual, every individual in the country, including male and female persons from all castes, religions, tribes, educational, and economic backgrounds, are recognized as equal. This is not to say that inequality ceases to exist. It doesn't. But at least in democratic India, the principle of the equality of all persons is recognized. While earlier, we are here. No law existed to protect people from discrimination and ill treatment. Now there are several that work to see that people are treated with dignity and as equals. This recognition of equality includes some of the following provisions in the Constitution. That ev- sorry. First, that every person is equal before the law. Equal before the law. What this means is that every person, from the president of the country to Kanta, a domestic worker, has to obey the same laws. Second, no person can be discriminated against on the basis of their religion, race, caste, place of birth, whether they are male or female. Third, every person has access to all the public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops, markets. All persons can use publicly available wells, roads, bathing ghats. Fourth, untouchability has been abolished. So this is very important, where we discuss that firstly, in India before, it was not, equality wasn't recognized, and since it was not recognized, there weren't laws. But now there are several laws to protect the rights of the people, especially when it comes to that all individuals, irrespective of where they are born, what religion they follow, or what caste they come from, they all are equal before the law. And this has been done by following several laws which are recognized by our constitution. The two ways in which government has tried to implement the equality that is guaranteed in the constitution is, first, through laws, and second, through government programs or schemes. Now, how do these laws get implemented? Firstly, by they make laws, and second, they have some programs and schemes to help disadvantaged communities. We are here. There are several laws in India that protect every person's rights to be treated equally. In addition to laws, the government has also set up several schemes to improve the lives of people and communities and who have been treated unequally for several centuries. These schemes are to ensure greater opportunity for people who have not had this in the past. So there are several schemes which tries to ensure that there is opportunity given to people who have not been given access to those in the past. One of the steps taken by the government includes midday meal schemes. This refers to the program introduced in all government elementary schools to provide children with cooked lunch. Tamil Nadu was the first state in India to introduce this scheme, and in 2001, the Supreme Court asked all state governments to begin this program in the schools within 6 months. This program has had many positive effects. These include the fact that more poor children have begun enrolling and regularly attending school. Teachers have reported that earlier children would often go home for lunch and then not return to school, but now with the midday meal being provided in the school, their attendance has improved. Their mothers who earlier had to interrupt their work to find feed their children at home during day now no longer need to do so. This program has also helped reduce caste prejudice because both lower and upper caste children in the school eat this meal together, and in quite a few places Dalit women have been employed to cook the meal. Sorry. The midday meal program also helps reduce the hunger of the poor students who often come to school and cannot concentrate because their stomachs are empty. While government programs play an important role in increasing quality of opportunity, There is much that still needs to be done. While the midday meal program has helped increase the enrollment and attendance of poor children in school, there continues to be a big difference in our country between schools that the rich attend and those that the poor attend. Even today, there are several schools in the country in which Dalit children like Om Prakash Valmiki are discriminated against and treated unequally. These children are forced into unequal situations in which their dignity is not respected, I think. Is not Yeah, it's not respected. So here we can see in the picture that children are being served their midday meal at a government school in Uttarakhand. What is the midday meal program? Can you list the three benefits of the program, and how do you think this program might help promote greater equality? Find out about one government scheme in your area. What does this scheme do, and who is this scheme set up to benefit? So you can discuss one of the programs which is set by in your state or maybe in your area by the government. So here firstly we discuss about the midday meal scheme. Okay, so if you talk about the it was first introduced in Tamil Nadu and later on it was implemented throughout the state. So if we talk about, then the more children have begun firstly more children have begun enrolling and regularly attending school, because then they would not go back to home for lunch. And then sometimes, most of the times it used to happen that they used to go to home for lunch and never return. Their mothers who used to interrupt had to interrupt their work to feed their children. Now they don't have to worry about that because their kids are being provided food in the school. And it has helped reduce caste prejudice, because most of the times the children of all castes, wherever they come from, to in whichever caste they belong, they sit and eat together. And lastly, the Dalit women, mostly are often employed, so that um, it gives a sense of empowerment to the people, that even if you belong to some caste or creed, your opportunity to work in any area should be stopped. Second, and then of course that it reduces the hunger of poor students who or used to often come school empty stomachs. So here can you see this building, and here are the people. So the parliament is a cornerstone of a democracy, and we are represented in it through our elected representative. So can you see, this is the parliament where all the decisions are made. Here can you see people who are uplifting it, so because they are representing us, it shows. Okay, so now next, who is he? Let's see. It is disgraceful to live at the cost of one's self respect. Self respect is the most vital factor in life. Without it, man is a cipher. To live worthily with self respect, one has to overcome difficulties. It is out of hard and ceaseless struggle alone that one derives strength, confidence, and recognition. So, Mr. Ambedkar is talking that self respect is the most important thing in the life, and without it, man is like a cipher. And to live worthily, to live a life itself, with self respect, one has to cross a lot of difficulties. Man is mortal. Everyone has to die someday or the other, but one must resolve to lay down one's life in enriching the noble ideals of self respect and in bettering one's human life. Nothing is more nothing is more disgraceful for a man, for a brave man, than to live life devoid of self-respect. So here, Mr. Ambedkar is talking about how important is self-respect is to a man. Though everybody in the world dies, but to matlab, to die without self-respect is very disgraceful, because it just doesn't give you a sense of being, that sense, that you are a person. And it's a different feeling to be have been respected and to be treated equally as everyone else. So here this is what Mr. Ambedkar is talking about. This is because people refuse to think of them as equal even though the law requires it. One of the main reasons of this is that attitude changes very slowly. Even though persons are aware that discrimination is against the law, they continue to treat people unequally on the basis of their caste, religion, disability, economic status, and because they are women. Changes take time. Changes are very slow, and even if people know that they're not supposed to ill treat somebody or discriminate, they still do it. Establishing equality in a democratic society is a continuous struggle. It is a continuous struggle, and one in which individuals as well as various communities in India contribute to, and we'll read more about it. Issues of equality in other democracies. Now we've seen what is the status in our country. Now we look at other countries. You're probably wondering whether India is the only democratic country in which there is equality, in which there is inequality, and whether the struggle for equality continues to exist. The truth is that in many democratic countries around the world, the issue of equality continues to be the key issue around which communities struggle. So far, in the United States of America, the African Americans whose ancestors who were the slaves who were brought over from Africa continues to describe their lives today as largely unequal. This despite the fact that there was a movement in the late 1950s to push for equal rights for African Americans. Prior to this, African Americans were treated extremely unequally to in the United States and denied equality through law. For example, when traveling by bus, they had to either sit at the back of the bus or get up from the seat whenever a white person wished to sit. So there's also now we're talking about that whether this, even after India being a democratic country and the issue of inequality still exists, are there any other nations who are democratic and still there also has an issue of inequality where people are not treated equally? Then we see an example of United States of America. Before independence and everything in America, so Africans were brought from, people from Africa, they were bought and they worked as slaves in America. And even after independence, they were like when United States got independence, even after that they were not treated equally. So a movement was started, uh, and especially in the 1950s. And for example, when they were traveling by bus, they were either asked to sit at the back of the bus, or they were asked to stand up if a white person comes, and asked and he needed a seat to sit. Rosa Parks was an African American woman. Tired from a long day at work, she refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white man on December 1955. So the woman who's known for this protest is um, Rosa Parks, and she was an African American. And after a long labor, she was very tired, so she refused to give up her seat for a white man on 1st December 1955. Her refusal that day started a huge agitation against the unequal ways in which African Americans were treated, and which came to be known as the civil rights movement. So, it happens that any incident that happens that leads on to another, that might lead on to another big a movement. Just for example, that one of the days when Rosa Parks was sitting in the bus, and when a white man comes, she refused to give up her seat because she was very tired that day. And so a civil rights movement started in America. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, religion, or national origin. It also stated that all schools should be open to African American children, and they would no longer have to attend separate schools specially set up for them. However, despite this, a majority of African Americans continue to be among the poorest in the country. Most African American children can only afford to attend government schools that have fewer facilities and poorly qualified teachers as compared to white students who either go to private schools or live in areas where the government schools are highly rated as private schools. So in 1964, there was a Civil Rights Act which came up to prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, religion, or national origin. But still, even after that, even today, the African Americans are one of the poorest, counted as one of the poorest in the country. And if they can only afford to send the kids to government school, which has fewer facilities. Rosa Parks, an African American woman, changed the course of American history with one defiant act. So here, Rosa Parks is shown as a woman who changed the history because she revolted, and that gave the movement for the civil rights movement, and finally, Civil Rights Act of 1964 came up. So here is an excerpt from Article 15 of the Indian Constitution. Now we're talking about our Constitution. Prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. The state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only. So here, only is very important. Okay. Only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. So the state cannot discriminate. Okay, only one thing that's very important is only and state. No citizen shall on grounds only. Okay. Now, so citizen and only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regard to access to shops, public restaurants, hotels, place of public entertainment, use of wells, tanks, bathing guards, roads, place of public resort maintained wholly or partly by the state funds or dedicated to the use of the general public. So here we're talking about the Article 15 of our Indian Constitution, where it prohibits discrimination on grounds of race, religion, caste, and sex of and place of birth. Where it clearly mentioned that the state is not allowed to discriminate on the grounds only of, and also no citizens or only on the ground of the ones we mentioned above: race, religion, caste, place of birth, or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction. And in the sense they're not allowed to give they're not allowed given access or use of wells which are made for common purpose, so everybody is allowed to do that. Challenge of democracy. No country can be described as being completely democratic. There are always communities and individuals trying to expand the idea of democracy and push for the greater recognition of equality or existing as well as new issues. Central to this is the struggle for the recognition of all persons as equal and for their dignity to be maintained. In this book, you'll read about how the issue of equality affects various aspects of our daily lives in democratic India. As you read the chapter, think about whether equality of all persons and their being able to maintain their dignity is upheld. So there are always challenges to democracy, and no country in the world is completely can be described as completely democratic, and the meaning of equality and democracy are still being expanded to various aspects of life. And you can also think of ways, in how many times people have been discriminated maybe around you, or you've seen it, or in instances you've heard. So do you think really India is a fully democratic country where people are given equal opportunity and are treated as equal? So let's see about the exercise. In a democracy, why is universal adult franchise important? Because every person who's an adult, that means over an age of 18 years, is allowed to be given um, the right to vote. If there's no democracy, how are the people going to be elected? And if the people who are going to stay in an area are not allowed to elect their representative, which is the basic meaning of democracy, then how is it that really call a democratic country? Reread the box 15 and state two ways in which this article addresses inequality. So, firstly, it says that addresses that you're not allowed, no that the state shall not discriminated against any citizen on grounds which is clearly mentioned of a race, sex, and vagera. And other is for the citizen, where the one citizen cannot discriminate against any other citizen only on the basis of this and condition with regard to given to access and use of public resources. In what ways was Om Prakash experience similar to that of the Ansaris? The experience similar was that they both were not treated as equal as the other citizens, whereas the Valmiki, being a kid, was not allowed to attend school, and rather he was asked to go and sweep the floor and clean the windows and the doors, and even go and clean the ground. Whereas the Ansaris, they were also not treated equally, because they were not being allowed to give flat only because they belonged to a certain religion and they followed a different religion from them. What do you understand by term all persons are equal before the law? Why do you think it is important in a democracy? All persons are equal before a law means that irrespective whether you are president, you are a police, you are a artisan, you are artist, or you're an artist, or you're an actor, whether you are a student, everybody is treated equally in the eyes of the law, and all the same rules and regulation are to be followed by all, regardless of which profession you come from. The government of India passed the Disabilities Act in 1995. The law states that persons with disability have equal rights and that the government should make possible their full participation in it. The government has to provide free education and integrate child with disabilities in the mainstream schools. This law also states that all public places, including buildings, schools, etc., should be accessible and provided with ramps. So you can see here a picture here. Okay, so these are stairs, and it's a wheelchair, and he can use the wheelchair, but he's not able to use it because there's no ramp here, and there's a stair here, a stair. So if there would have been ramp, then this person wouldn't have needed the help of four other people. He would have done it by himself. So, and there's an act called the Disabilities Act, which was passed in 1995, which tried to mainstream the children with children who are differently abled into the mainstream schools. And there, for example, they were asked to make ramps in it. Look at the photograph and you think, we've discussed things that only they are carrying this because there's no ramp. If there would have been ramp like a plank, like this, he wouldn't have needed the help of the other four people. So now we have the glossary. We can discuss adult universal franchise. This is a very important aspect of a democratic society. It means that all adults, those who are 18 and above, citizens have the right to vote irrespective of their social or economic background. Dignity, this refers to thinking of oneself and other persons as worthy of respect. So we all deserve respect irrespective of where we come from. Constitution, this is a document that lays down the basic rules and regulation for people and the government in a country to follow. So what is constitution? It is a document which lays down certain rules and regulations for the people and for the government in that country, which is to be followed. Civil rights movement, a movement that began in US in the 1950s, in which African American people demanded equal rights, and they wanted an end to racial discrimination which they often experience. Example, like going on a bus where you were made either to sit at the back or stand up when a white person walks in and offer you a seat. So these are different instances of discriminations which you might have also which were mentioned in the book, and you might have also seen, and you might have not thought over it. But yes, today, when you just sit down for some while, think that maybe unknowingly you also discriminated some people or your classmates on the basis of your religion, on the basis of the religion, caste, or maybe gender, just even for fun. So that is wrong. You shouldn't do it. And Yeah, that's it. I think we've done chapter 1 of this unit, and we'll start with the next chapter in the next class. Till then, I think take care of yourself, study, and be healthy. Bye.